to the community. At the same time, the media may be communicating something which the government does not think it's in its interest to be communicated. So that tension is always there, even at the best of times. Now, bring that into a situation where you have the war on terror, both in Nigeria and other places. Or even when you don't have the war on terror, look at what happened to WikiLeaks and the American government. Or you see that happening between the media and some institutions that may not be the state, because those institutions or the state in this instance feel that what the media is projecting is against their interests, it's against their view of the world, or the view of the world they would want to be projected. Okay. So when you begin from that and you come into a specific situation of terrorism, that tension only exacerbates. It does not decrease, because what may be happening on the field may not be what the government wants people to know or to believe or to even propagate. Even when you know it, it's like, shh, keep quiet about this. We don't want it out there. And some governments go out of their way to maintain that, if you like, a sense of denial of what is happening out there. They go out of their way to push to ensure that only their point of view is heard. And in fact, if we look at the history of how states and media have related, you begin to ask yourself, how come that the British government that set up the state in Nigeria, created a Ministry of Information, does not itself have a Ministry of Information? Britain doesn't have a Ministry of Information. America doesn't have a Ministry of Information. They created those ministries as propaganda arms of the state. Oh. As far as they were concerned, that is what they want to use that to give you an image of what the media should be. The colonial government wanted you to see the world in a certain...
Through a certain prism.
Yes. So when the nationalists came with the media, and you know, that was a very big weapon they had. People like Zeke were, dog and cats with the state, because their newspapers were saying what the government didn't want to hear. Bring that here now, and you see that nothing has changed. All right? We're simply replaying the same script. So when it is about terror, and especially in the Nigerian context, where we seem to be assaulted from all sides, the government might feel, oh, I'm losing it. And the only way to, the first reaction, the knee-jerk reaction is, hey, everybody keep quiet. What you're saying is not necessarily true. See the way you should say it. That doesn't work.
No, but some people would say that, that's not necessarily what it is, that every time the media gives voice to, activities of terrorist groups, it not only makes the government feel weak, it also terrorizes the people as well in a certain way.
It has that effect. There's no point about it. But you have to make a choice between telling the truth and not telling the truth. Question that is fundamental in all this discussion is the media reporting accuracy, or is the media sensationalizing developments? And it's very easy for that to happen, all right? Especially in the with social media, because that's an ungovernable space. Yeah. Social media, whatever laws you make, it's very difficult to impose those laws there. When you come to the formal media setting, you can deal with channels, assuming channels did something wrong. You can deal with Nigeria Info if Nigeria Info did anything wrong. But in the social media environment, everything goes. And the trouble there is that many of us as consumers of the news, we are not discerning. All right? I get a picture or I get a story. I think not for a second whether this is true, the probability of this happening is high or low. I simply forward it to somebody else. So in that sense, yes, you create a sense of panic. You create fear. All right? So the original responsibility that the media has, and that's the only way the media can successfully navigate the rough waters with the state, is to remain on the path of accuracy, is to be sure that you investigate what you're reporting, is to be sure that a statement you attribute to somebody is actually a statement that person made. Because at the end of the day, that's the only defense you have.
Well, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned this. I mean, we've had a few instances, you know, and the person in question will deny. Or they'll say, oh, you quoted me out of context. I mean, we've seen many government officials do that in recent times.
Yes. Sometimes public figures make speeches which, or make statements they wish they didn't make. But you see, they are being dishonest when they say, oh, I didn't say that. But the media person, if they said it, I will record when you said it, in which context you said it, so that when you deny, I will put that fact out and I allow the public to make their judgment. I won't go and insist that, oh, but you said it. I'll simply say the context, the time, and it's very easy to do that now with the kind of digital DGR that media we are running. All right? So we need to hold those people to account. If I were a public figure, and I said something which turns out to be wrong, I should have the courage to say, oh yes, I said it, but I'm sorry. I made a mistake. But the first thing most people do is to pass it back to the media. Oh, you misquoted me. That's a trick that is used across the world, and most people know that it is wrong. Once a public person says, I was misquoted, hey, something is wrong. So you said something, all right? It's just the misquote. There's a difference between being misquoted and being misinterpreted. You can quote me rightly and you misinterpret me.
In context?
Yes. But we never go even to make that distinction. What you said, that the rain was falling, was the rain falling at that time? Or was it just a drizzle and it wasn't rain? If it was a we can quibble about that. We can say, okay, I mistook a drizzle for rain. But we can't say, oh, I was misquoted, and you expect me to go with that. Sorry now. I would have to want to find out, did you or did you not say? Let's leave the misquote alone. Did you say anything quotable by the media? So those are tricks that governments do. They deny it. Because sometimes, you know, governments are human beings. They are individuals. You may go out there and you are reacting according to your best judgment at this time. You come back to the office and the boss or the superior says, see, that thing is not right. All right? When you are overruled, you go out there and say, I was misquoted, or it never happened. We have a problem both in this country and in other countries, but it seems to be worse in this country, to face reality, to confront the truth and work with the truth. There are times when that truth is uncomfortable. There are times when that truth is embarrassing. All right? But the best way, in my opinion, to deal with it is to start with, did I blow it? Did I make a mistake? Did that thing really happen? If it happened, yes, my people, it happened. All right? I'm just human like you. I'm sorry it happened. I will ensure it does not happen again.
Okay, let's look at reporting of proscribed group like IPOB, for example. Would you say that, you know, first of all, a law was broken at all, speaking to them? Because some people say that every time we speak to people like IPOB, I mean the media now, or maybe you Shekau says something and we put it out there, that we're emboldening terror or, you know, the proscribed groups.
There's a sense in which that could be correct. Every group, proscribed or not, would want to be in the public, in part of the public discussion. Certainly IPOB would want to be. Certainly Shekau would want to be, you know, mentioned in every news. But that's what brings us back to, are we dealing with facts? Did Shekau or Khan or anybody say or do something that is newsworthy? If they did or said such a thing, in my opinion, the media has a responsibility to report it. The government may not like what it heard, but is it a fact? And in that case, if it is a fact, even if the government doesn't like it, I would have thought, if I were the government, that I would investigate this thing. If it is fact, the media has just given me intelligence that I would not otherwise have had. So you cannot make a blanket statement to say you can't talk about this group. Why not talk about that group? Does the group exist? Are they harassing people's lives? Are they a threat to security and peace in the place? If they are, the media has a responsibility to report it.
But in a case like this, or in cases like this, would you say it's in public interest for the media to, report such incidents?
In my opinion, yes. Yes, it should. One, because the public needs to know. The state itself needs to know. Because if the state knew, if the state had the wherewithal, especially in terms of gathering intelligence, some of those developments will not have gotten to the point where they are. All right? But because we've lived in denial all these years, with Boko Haram, with IPOB, with militancy in other parts of the country, with herdsmen, farmers clashes, for a long time we lived in denial. And see where that denial has got us. The problems have gotten worse. And the government itself now feels beleaguered. Not just from those groups, but from the media. The easiest group to deal with in this instance is the media.
So the media takes the fall.
The media takes the fall. All right? That's why, going back to that tension between the government and the state, the government, in my opinion, needs to do its own intelligence work. All right? There are certain things you allow those groups to express themselves. See, a pot is boiling, and you sit on it, and you say, don't even let out steam. It will blow up. Yeah. All right? In every society, be it in the Soviet Union, in the United States, in Great Britain, they have such groups, but they know how they manage such groups. And the way you manage them is not to come with the hammer the first time and say, I don't want to hear your voice. All right? Because that voice will be heard from various sources, whether you like it or not. That's just the nature of the world we live in. And especially now, with social media so active, it is very difficult. So the best way, in my opinion, is if IPOB were to make a statement to say that there is insecurity in Nigeria, we don't like insecurity in Nigeria, I would agree with IPOB. And I would not quarrel that the person who said it was IPOB. No, because they are stating fact. But if IPOB were to say, Nigeria, we are going to divide it tomorrow, as Boko Haram is dividing the country tomorrow, I would say yes, the media should be careful with that kind of, again, because one, until further notice, all of us officially support the integrity of Nigeria. What we don't support is the way that integrity is translated, and that's part of what IPOB is reacting against. And that's what we need to ask ourselves. These problems raised by these groups, are there facts behind them? Are they true? If they are true, as a state, how do we react to it? Unfortunately, in the case of Nigeria, the state is part of the problem. Because whether it is IPOB or militants in the Niger Delta or insurgency in the north, what you're dealing with is a clear case of the absence of social justice in the system. If you had that justice, if there was any appearance of that justice, if there was any appearance of even-handedness in the way the state over the years in this country has reacted to various issues, whether military or civilian, we would not be where we are today. But we are there because nobody cares about social justice in the country. Everybody cares about power. I have power. And look what it is doing to those who have power. Look what it is doing to those who represent those who have power. Everybody's power center is threatened. Whether it is the executive branch, the legislative branch, the judiciary, the military, the police, because we've not used what we had in the way we should use it.
All right, so interesting that you brought us here. Is there a way the government can use the media to the advantage?
Yes. Yes. What, in my opinion, our governments have not yet learned is what I refer to as the culture of democracy. All right? We have the institutions. We have political parties, we have government, we have all those things. But there is a culture that informs the way those things run, the way they relate to each other, the way they relate to the general public. All right? until we imbibe that culture, and part of it is what I was referring to earlier on by reference to social justice. There's a fairness, a sense of fairness that everybody has. You don't have to go to school. You don't have to be a politician. But you know when you are being treated fairly, and you know when you're not being treated fairly. That's the minimum that we need to begin to work at. The media has a responsibility to report what is happening in the society accurately, timely, without bias, that's objectively, right? And the government should consume what is coming from the media to say this is the kind of information we are getting through the media. How do we process this information in order to bring out policy, in order to bring out programs that will address those things that, because the media should help government to feel the pulse of the society. But when the government is not interested in the pulse and simply says, so long as the people are there, don't tell us what is happening, don't tell us how they're reacting, that's what is wrong. What government can do is bring the media together from time to time. This is our thinking. This is the way we are going. What do you guys think? What do you feel out there? What's the pulse of the public? It's not something you need to do every day, or do every day in the media. You bring the guild of editors. You bring your broadcasters. Let them know this is my thinking. This program, this is the way we're going. Because the media should help you to monitor those programs. You run a program to say you're employing 774,000 people across the country. Great program, great idea. But you've not brought the media as part of your partners in monitoring that thing. So the media is left to saying, oh, what the Minister of State for Labor did in the National Assembly, and so on and so forth. And the media on its own does not have the wherewithal, all right, to actually do investigation, to go to a particular local government who is recruiting these people. How are they being recruited? What are they being paid? All right. So I think that there's space in which the media and the state can collaborate in the interest of the general public. But we are not even exploring that because the government comes with power. And the media says we're the fourth estate of the realm. We can. Neither side, in my opinion, has really thought of how do we use our power. Because the media has power, tremendous power. Just as the state has power. The difference is that the state power comes with a gun, with bullets. But the power of the media is stronger. Because they're dealing with the minds of the people. They're dealing with the consciousness of the people. That's why, in my opinion, government needs to explore ways to say, hey, we don't need to make these people enemies. We need to make them our friends. But even as friends, we need people who will tell us the truth when we are wrong.
Do the people want to hear the truth?
If they don't want to hear the truth, then we're in trouble.
We're not even full. Commercial has to play. Professor Ekekewe is here with us. And we'll open the phone lines in a bit on this matter.
92.3 Nigeria Info.
We're Nigerian for 23 minutes before 9 o'clock, and we're talking the relationship between the state and the media. Case in point, the NBC fining Channels TV for having the spokesperson of IPOB, Imam Powerful, on their channel. The document that was released and signed by NBC's acting DG, Professor Armstrong Dachaba, said Channels TV allowed the spokesperson of IPOB to make secessionist and inciting declarations on air without caution or reprimand, contrary to the broadcast code. We've got Professor Ekekewe here. He's a professor of political science, and he's been, telling us ways that the media and the government have been interacting, and of course better ways to get that done. You want to join the conversation? We're on Twitter at Nigeria Info PH, on WhatsApp 08090306416. We are on Facebook at Nigeria Info PH. You want to calling 0817-923-0002, 0817-923-0003, 0817-923-0009 are the numbers to call. Please put off your radio and let's talk.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Yes, my name is Ibiso from Odili Road. Prof, good morning, sir. Hello, sir, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Okay, thank God you bring this topic on ground, because since in your morning crossfire, I was trying to call to contribute. I'm a image consultant. And, the thing there is, most of us are reacting to NBC, finding channels. They would have to go into details of what happened. And for example, when sometimes we call on your station, there's some statement that some people make, you correct them immediately. But Nigeria did not tolerate such things. And if they don't agree, sometimes you put them off for one before you can connect them back. So, to my understanding, NBC give you the license, they've given you their own code on how you go about your business. But once you go against it, you are going against NBC's own rule. So, channels, nobody's against them. But when you want to do this thing, you know where and where to go. As the Prof is saying it, now if it's our social media, Facebook, the fast people that want to post something, they can post anything. But do you know that Facebook even banned Nnamdi Kanu? Twitter even blocked Donald Trump, as the president the president when he was still serving in US, because they have their own rules. But here in our country, Nigeria, anything that they will bring tribalism, will bring religious into it. Nobody's supporting any Shakara or anybody. But you as employee that is working, you know what and what you bring in your stations for you to remain in your work that you're doing. And because Nigeria is full, educate many people in River City when they're discussing that this statement with Nigeria Info, we are not tolerating it. And they stand by that.
All right.
And you not come and put Nigeria Info into problem. So let us learn. As I am now, I cannot just post Prof picture on social media without course can sue me to court. But the thing we always go the other side and say that what did this person I mean, say did it, they didn't say anything. No. Thank God that you read out the thing. But most of we just look at the headline. Government ban we don't know what is the problem. The thing that is they hate. So let us learn. Thank God for this topic. Right. And I would like to call Prof again to come and educate many people, because the social media handlers are the problem now.
All right.
They want to post everything they see. Like now the military was complaining that anything you see want to post it. They will post some pictures that as in they are bombing Nigeria soldiers. They want to post, so there are some things that we have to control.
All right. Thank you for calling, Prof. You were responding to that in a certain way.
Yes, I think there are two things from what he said which makes sense to me. One is that there are rules, and all of us should play by those rules. And I didn't listen to the program that Channels broadcast. That is the problem. But going from this gentleman's reaction, what he's saying is, if the IPOB representative made certain statements that channels had a responsibility. If channels knew, one, that statement was against their corporate policy, or two, was against any law in the country, that channels had a responsibility to have reported, retorted immediately to say, no, we don't encourage those kinds of views. Now, if that is the case and channels did not do it, I think the gentleman is correct. In that case, it would be right to sanction channels, because there is a law, there's a rule which channels has signed up to play by. That's part of that integrity of the corporate body or of the individual concerned. But what I would have difficulty with is to say, don't talk to anybody from IPOB. Don't talk to anybody from Boko Haram. There are certain times when news media go out of their way to seek interviews with those people, because and that's when you work cooperatively with the state, because there are things they will tell you that your intelligence sources may not be able to get. And that's why it is important to keep that window open. But you're keeping it open in a very informed way. You know what your interest is. You know what your goal is. You know what you're driving. But to simply slam the door and say, don't do this, I think that's where we have any disagreement. But on principle, I think the path is set out is actually the way it should go. Any media house should know what the rules are. Play by those rules, just as you expect the government to also play by the rules.
All right. We're Nigerian for good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Sustano.
Let's hear you.
I get the Prof in the studio. Good morning, Prof.
Good morning.
My name is Royal Chief Ambassador Magnus Sedon, and I'm calling for our community in Ghana local government. I've keenly listened to the Prof, and then the topic is very interesting and educative. But I just want to put one simple question to the Prof. Most of these media houses are being owned by top politicians in Nigeria. How could they monitor the media houses being owned by themselves? The second question, let me frame it this way. When a particular political party is in power, all what the media houses do that is in their favor, it is always good. But when there is an opposition, for instance, we have top political parties in Nigeria. We have the APC and we have the PDP. If a PDP man owns a particular media house and is reporting according to what the public wants to hear, it has investigated and said that this is what we need to do. Prof, you talked about collaborations. How will that collaboration work when the other party is saying it as you are using it as a propaganda? So can we distinguish propaganda from political interference in the media work?
All right, thank you.
Very good point. And that brings us to the nature of the media and the structure of the media in the country. The caller is absolutely correct. Many of the media houses are owned by politicians, and they own them as a tool for furthering their own private interest. And the journalists who go there to work, I mean, a journalist needs to be employed. That's what makes his profession feed him. Unfortunately, it's not the ownership that is the problem, in my opinion. It is the integrity of the media person. All right? You know your work is to report the facts as you see them, as you hear them, all right? Not as you think they should be seen and they should be heard. If you cannot do that, then you have no business going to work in any newspaper house, in any radio house, because you've already compromised yourself. In that case, whatever comes after you is fair, because you've already declared that you are going to play outside your own professional ethics and rules. But if you stay within those professional ethics, it doesn't matter who owns that newspaper house. You'll be able to say, excuse me, sir, we can't report this, or we can't report this way.
Or better still, you walk away.
Yes. But how many of us are able to walk away? Because the next meal depends on...
It's tied to that employment.
Exactly. And even when you are on that employment, and that's what's worse, you're not well paid. So you go out there and you begin to look for news that brings, comes along with envelope. And once you do that, you further compromise yourself. And so you cannot put out that value that the media should actually represent to the society. it happens everywhere in the world that a particular government at a particular time thinks, oh, this newspaper is doing great or this media house is doing great. Look at America under Trump. The fight they had with CNN on the one hand and the collaboration they had with Fox News on the other hand. Okay, so those things happen. But the American White House in their press conferences, they will not say to CNN, don't come. They will allow CNN in. Trump would say, oh yeah, you fake news people, but you cannot stop them from coming. You cannot stop them having their representative, their correspondent in the White House. All right? So it is that what I referred to earlier as the culture of the democracy that we still need to work very hard at, so that you can disagree with what the media is saying, but you don't kill the media. You don't go out of your way to make life difficult for the media. Those who own the media in this country, at least certain elements in the media world, see it as their personal ego projection. They're not seeing it as a medium to provide public service. And there's a difference there. When a politician sets up a newspaper, some of them, they run for a few months and they go away when the man's purpose is met or it's not being met. If they started with public service, it would be different. If the media person the journalist who goes to work in that institution, started off wanting to give public service, it would be different. But if I go up, I want to serve ENO, because this is ENO's institution, I get it wrong. Because the day you wake up and say, oh, I no longer like your face, I no longer like your handwriting, I'm out. And when I'm out, I have no basis to defend myself. That's what is wrong. Both sides have, in my opinion, serious homework to do.
We're Nigerian folk. Good morning.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Promise.
All right.
My name is Promise Walker.
Go on, Promise.
Yeah, you are talking about the relationship between the media and the government. Yeah, it's not very, very cordial, because the situation we are saying is very, very horrible. Now, the media is interested on where the government cannot ban stations. You understand? Like now, the way you used to do your analysis and Excel, it's not the same thing. Excel will always want to cut you off. Even you will give people time so that people will air out their view. Excel will always don't want anything to happen to their stations. Now, look at what happened in the US, where a former president, was banned in the social media. And it happened in Nigeria. Is it mad for you to see the former president in a networking? He said he will not have any contact. Who are you? Or look at what is happened. Last Nnamdi Kanu, they see him as an ordinary citizen. They banned him in Nigeria. Can you see the atrocities and the unfair situations in Nigeria? So what are you saying?
All right.
There are other things that you say in the media. The government will come after you. They will not tell you that where your station is, where they will make roads. They will put road there. And from there are fears within the stations and the communications systems in Nigeria. So that is the problem we are having.
All right.
How do you air your view?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Promise. A message here, Prof. The Prof is very, very correct. You do not apply social justice and you're feeling social injustice and chaos. Mieti Allah herdsmen, bandits are not terrorists and they can have audience with government. In fact, we must give them land for ranching all over the country. But if IPOB demands justice, then we are disobeying the law. Who is fooling who? So, I mean, in some other fora, I've heard people say, Mieti Allah, they come out and they make very, inciting statements. Sometimes people who represent them and, nobody's saying anything. Is that the clear case of what you describe as social injustice?
Yes. We are not treating every group, every interest group. And Mieti Allah is an interest group in the country. IPOB is an interest group in the country.
So adding the word prescribed shouldn't change the narrative?
No. No. Okay. When you prescribe, that's the whole issue. On what grounds do you prescribe an IPOB and not Mieti Allah? They're not the same.
Okay. This one says the media resents both the people and the government. Unfortunately, we have a government who wants to force everything down the throat of all Nigerians with propaganda and falsehood. They claim to bring a lot of invisible things on air. Anybody who suggests anything is viewed as an enemy of the government and chased with security agents. The government seems to either exist for itself or have decided to be deliberately oblivious to reality. BOB sent that in. Okay. The media plays the role of reporting happenings objectively with respect to facts. However, national security must be considered as well. Fairable Cliff, let's talk about this. The matter of national security. How far should the media go in putting that into consideration?
It's an important factor in any country. You cannot say national security is unimportant. But again, that's where you have to navigate very carefully. All right? Assume a situation where, and as the media used to use the language of the media, let me go to Afghanistan. All right? Assume a situation where in Afghanistan, the Taliban is dealing with American soldiers, killing them mercilessly, so to speak. All right? But in Washington, White House says all is hunky-dory, everything is going out well. All right? Does the media in that instance keep quiet to say what we saw in Afghanistan is no longer important? No. The media, even though this is a national security issue, the media should be bold to say, sorry, our soldiers are being exposed to unacceptable hardship and conditions out there. In order to make them fight better, in order to make them improve the national security, we need to work in, give them the conditions which they need to face that battle. Bring that Afghanistan back to Nigeria. All right? Yes, Boko Haram, IPOB, and so on. They may be doing things we don't like, but the media we can't make a blanket statement to say, oh, this is national security, you can't comment on it. That would be disservice. Remember where we started. The whole idea is to serve the public, is to serve the nation. If there's something going wrong within even that security apparatus, and the media has the facts, not rumor, not imagination, and the media had the facts, in my opinion, it should report those facts. Right. And government has a responsibility to use those facts to improve that national security situation.
All right. We're Nigerian, Phil. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. This is from Port Harcourt. I think the underlying word which the professor just made is reporting facts. Reporting facts. Under President Muhammadu Buhari, the media was muzzled to the point that they are afraid to tell the truth. Even the government-owned media houses, as I'm talking to you now, over 50% of residents in Port Harcourt can't even remember when they tuned into government-owned channels. They can't even remember. Because their programming is so boring. Because they are afraid to tell the truth. The ban on these media houses, or the attack on the media houses by the federal government, is a deliberate ploy to keep Nigerians in darkness.
Okay, so Mr. Zion, I'm not sure about the phrase "afraid to speak the truth." I'm not sure about that.
Are you sure?
I'm not sure about that. If like Prof said, there are rules, right? So if that's the rule, then you must play by the rule, isn't it?
Yes. If your institution or whatever you have, if they have rules, you're obliged to play with those rules. If you don't like the rules, get out.
Get out of the kitchen. We're Nigerian, folks.
Hello, good morning,
Good morning. Go on,
yeah, my contribution to this too. A lot of people think that democracy is absolute freedom. It is freedom to do what is right. It's not freedom to do whatever you want to do. Do what is right. In respect to what we are talking about, no country will allow somebody to come and sensitize a nation that I will destroy this nation. I will do this, I will do that. No. Media should not allow that. And if government takes measures to that, I think government is right. That is number one. Number two is that some of the media presenters, if somebody is passing information that's wrong, it is your responsibility to correct him. No, what you're saying is wrong. You have facts. You have anything to prove what you're saying. People come on radio and say whatever they want to say. And the presenter will be listening to him, pushing out information that is wrong. So these are some of the problems we have in communication, and I think that some of you who are in the media should be able to put this thing right.
All right.
Freedom is okay, but freedom, do the things that are right. That is freedom. You can't go to the street and begin to urinate everywhere, say I'm free. No.
Thank you very much for calling. We need to wrap this up. Lots of messages here. Hector says, even the worst government needs the media because without the media, they seem not to exist. They feel like coming back to school, sir, to hear you talk. Says you're one of the best in political and administrative studies at the University of Port Harcourt. But you're no longer in service, are you?
I'm retired.
Prof is retired, Hector. You're not a consultant, so you have to bring big money if you want Prof to.
Small money.
Okay, from Hector, small money. All right. Okay. This one is from Melody Uniport. My Prof, you've said it the way it is. Our leaders are either too naive to face the truth or ignorant of how to manage historical dialectics of this kind. Without that interview, how would we have known that IPOB now has a new commander who could be a risk to society? Unlike the erudite professor has clearly stated, collaboration is what government needs with the media. But my question here is, when most of the media houses are being owned by top politicians, how can the balance coming?
Very good question, and it was also raised earlier by one of the callers. See, when it comes to the media as such, that's one of the points we're trying to make, that forget the ownership. Look at the role that is being played. It does not matter. It may be Buhari's paper, assuming he had one, and you have an event, you invite them. You're inviting them not as Buhari's paper, but as a paper, as a medium through which you want to get certain information out and get certain information in from the public. We pay too much attention. Who cares who owns CNN? Who cares who owns Fox? What the people are listening to is the content coming from those places. And that's where those people working in newspaper or media houses owned by politicians, that's where they need to get their act together. They are not serving the person who owns that place. And if that person who owned it is not out to provide public service, he has no business owning a newspaper.
All right. Final message. Jerry from Wuri says, I don't have problem with the rules of the NBC, especially when the said media bodies have signed into the rules. The only thing I wish is that government could attach half of the effort they put in shunning freedom of speech to truly solving the problems on ground. Then Nigeria will not be where it is today. Thank you very much, Professor, for your time.
Thank you very much.
Totally appreciate it. Well, the Prof has, for want of another word, I believe done justice to this matter. Thank you for joining us. Some of your messages I'll read after the news at 9 o'clock. My name is Ekekewe. Thank you.
You are tuned in to 92.3.